Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, already seated is the moderator of session, Commissioner for Finance in Lagos State. Please applaud Dr. Rabiu Onolapo Oluwu. Panelists include Miss Ngozi Ola Israel. Please can you applaud her? Dr. Adeshola Kazim is also one of our panelists. And we also have Emmanuel Etadehe. Please can we put our hands together? And Mrs. Bukola Smith. And Miss and of course Miss Indefreke Nkose. Can we applaud her? Before I hand over to the moderator of session, the Commissioner for Finance, very quickly for the next 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, the photographers want a picture of the panelists, just for 1 minute. Please, can we all rise for that photograph before we go into the session, please? Please, sir. We know you're going to do a wonderful job, so we're already applauding you in advance. Photographers, you have just 1 minute for this. Thank you very much. Can we please applaud moderator of session and the panelists, even as I hand over to the moderator of session, Dr. Rabiu Onolapo Oluwu. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So you're welcome to this panel session, a breakout session on financial services. And as we have been having sessions upon sessions as part of the Lagos State Development Plan 2052, I just want to reiterate a few points just to connect the dots. The LSDP 2052 is structured along 4 strategic dimensions with clear overarching objectives: thriving economy, human-centric city, modern infrastructure, and effective governance. And what you would all agree with me is that even though financial services falls within the thriving economy category, I personally believe that financial services cuts across everything, from thriving economy to making Lagos a human-centric city, to a city of great modern infrastructure and effective governance, because we believe that every decision that we're going to be making in the LSDP 2052 will be a financial decision at the end of the day. And I am pleased to be joined this morning with eminent experts, practitioners, and I think we have some regulators within our midst. I'll be introducing our panelists. We have Mrs. Indifreke Ngozi, the EVP Group Strategy for InterSwitch. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And to my far left is Mr. Emmanuel Etade, Senior Vice President, FMDQ. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
To my immediate right is Ms. Ngozi Ola Israel. She's the Chief Finance Officer for AXA Mansa. Thank you very much. And we have to my far right, Mrs. Bukola Smith, Managing Director, FSDH Merchant Bank. Thank you very much for joining. So I think we are head to a start of a very, very interesting session. As you all know, Lagos is the 5th largest economy in Africa and #1 in West Africa. Fast at growing its peers in other African countries, but the economy remains volatile due to macroeconomic shocks, making the need for a resilient economy even more imperative. We have gathered here today industry experts, thought leaders, practitioners, and innovators in their very respective fields that cross across the financial services sector, some of which were involved in the development of the development plan itself, to discuss with us, to engage with us, and to validate some of the components that we have under the financial services aspect of the Lagos Development Plan. Today's session has been framed establishing Lagos as a world-class international financial center, given Lagos' current position as Nigeria's commercial hub, hosting majority of all corporate organizations and small businesses. Financial services will play a big role in making Lagos, the ability to develop and deliver this plan. I'll start with Mrs. Bukola Smith, Managing Director, FSD H Merchant Bank. Lagos economy is fast outgrowing, and outpacing its peers in Africa and the emerging market. But we all know that Lagos still lags these market peers in terms of wealth. And when I say wealth, I mean real GDP per capita. What are the drivers hindering economic resilience and development in Lagos State?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Rabi. When you talk about GDP per capita, I guess to set the tone first would be for us to define what GDP actually is. So GDP is the monetary value of goods and services produced in the country at any given point in time. And of course, GDP per capita will be GDP divided by the population of a nation, in this case of a state. Lagos State, like we know, is a fast-growing city. Population-wise, I think numbers are somewhere around 22 million. And the statistics show that will probably grow up to about 33 billion in the next 20, 30 years. GDP has been growing, but population has been growing faster than GDP for two reasons, I would say: urbanization and also the young population, because the population of Lagos is very, very productive. So we are having children, at an alarming rate. So unfortunately, the GDP of the economy hasn't grown as fast. So that means that the GDP per capita is actually not growing. And to now say reasons why this has happened. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we all know what has happened with the COVID. So COVID has created significant impact on jobs. There has been loss of jobs, and a number of companies have even folded up during that period. That has had a negative impact on the economy. Another thing that has also impacted the economy has been the oil prices. So prior to this year, oil prices have been depressed for the last 4 or 5 years. And as a result of these two particular issues, we've seen that production levels has also gone down. We've seen that the spending power of the Lagosian has actually dropped. When I then come into this year, unfortunately, oil prices have gone up this year, given what has happened with the Ukraine-Russia war. But unfortunately, we in Nigeria haven't been able to benefit from that because of the oil theft issues that we are facing. And all of this have had a negative impact on the Lagos economy. Another thing that has also impacted, and I'm sure everybody knows about this, exchange rate devaluation. That is a major point in everybody's agenda now. We've seen currency devalue both in the official market and in the black market to, extremely high levels that we've never seen before. And what this also does is takes out money from hands of people, and people are not able to spend as much as they would have done. Inflation is also another factor. So there's been many economic headwinds. So inflation, like I mentioned, has been rising at an alarming rate. So cost-push inflation, also on the back of exchange rates, has led to increase in prices at a very high level. And all of this have impacted on the economy as a whole. So I will stop at this point. Those are just some of the points that I would mention that have created the headwinds and impacted on the Lagos economy, and not letting Lagos be the large city that it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think she deserves a round of applause. I think you've laid down the challenges well. And, from what I can hear, most of the things you talked about, inflation, exchange rate, oil theft, oil prices, these things are the things that operate at the sovereign level.
Yes.
And, Lagos, we have our own kind of energy, our own kind of agility. Maybe it's just fortunate or unfortunate that we are part of, a superstructure, a super system, whereby the lesser is included in the greater. And Lagos being, as you know, some sort of a super state, maybe a country within a country, if you like, we are challenged. I'll go very quickly to Ms. Ifreke Nkosi, the EVP for Intersul. Despite these challenges, despite the challenges that have been reeled out by Mrs. Nicola Swift, Lagos has the goal of becoming Africa's financial hub, despite these challenges, as well as the leading investment destination for fintech. Keeping this goal in mind, what is the current state of the financial services sector in Lagos? What's the baseline? Where are we? If we're going to be dreaming about, getting to a particular destination, I think it's really important for us to establish where we are at the moment so that we can know where we are headed.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rabiu. Can you hear me? Thank you, Dr. Rabiu. I think my response would show how much of an optimist I am. So when we look at the financial services sector in Lagos State, I mean, it's obvious that the financial services sector within Lagos State is a key driver of its economy. We know that financial services accounts for about 7% of the GDP within Lagos State. And I mean, if you look at the players, if you look at the traditional players within Lagos, you would see that the top leading players in this space they're warehoused or they're homed or they're headquartered in Lagos. Now, if you move away from that traditional approach and you start to look at the other players, right? For example, the fintechs, the technology companies, retail companies, e-commerce companies, you realize that these businesses are also in Lagos and have the potential to be in Lagos. And if we also take several steps back, right? There's been a projection that financial services will continue its growth trend and grow about 8% in 2022. What are the drivers? Right? And think about the opportunity within the SME space. We have roughly about 40 million SMEs. We haven't tapped into that sector. Think about financial inclusion. Despite the progress we've made, we still have about 36% of our adult population that require basic financial services, right? And the fundamental data that tells us how much opportunity we still have is the fact that cash is still king. Several years ago, when we looked at this, cash was still about 90, I think it was as high as 92 or 95% of total transactions. Within Africa, Nigeria mirrors that data. Today, it has dropped to 80%. There's still potential. So when I think of the financial services sector in Lagos State, I mean, I talked about the players. Think about the employees. Think about the potential that comes from these opportunity areas and the potential to even provide employment opportunities in Lagos State. I would say that it's here. Lagos State has the ability to actually enhance value for all the financial services stakeholders.
Thank you very much. I think I hear statistics like the financial services sector in Lagos State accounts for 7% of Lagos State GDP. I think that is very correct. I'd like to ask the audience, before you get a chance for, asking us. Lagos is the financial, business, and commercial hub of Nigeria, with established regional dominance with 12 banks in Africa's top 100, and has clear continental expansion plans. I'm asking you, what factors limit Lagos from transitioning its current financial sector to compete with global peers? When you respond, we'll give a chance to one or two of our panelists to actually make comments on that. Does anyone want to take a try? From the audience. What factors limit Lagos from transitioning its current financial sector to compete with global peers? So you are a consumer of financial services, right? So what factors do you see that limits Lagos to be able to compete with global peers? Or what would you like to see as part of that improvement opportunity within the financial services space? Yes, please. The microphone. The microphone, the rolling microphone. Yeah, so you can pass that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is it working? Yeah?
Yeah.
So my name is Branka Mretajac. I'm the CEO and MD of Nine Payment Service Bank. And we are all about financial inclusion and on a mission to bank Naija. So from our perspective, I would say, like, what limits Lagos to transition to payment services on a global level? I would say, like, from the top of my head, and what was my experience when I came to Lagos 2 years ago, is multiple failure points when it comes to transactions. There are too many middlemen. Like once you swipe your card, and the moment that that transaction is booked to the account of recipient, if I'm not mistaken, there are like 6 or 7 potential failure points. And people don't know about that. So usually they blame either the bank or they blame POS terminals, but they don't understand the complicity of all the transactional system, how the chain looks like. So that would be from my perspective. And the second, and I'm not sure how much it applies to, I live on Victoria Island and the office is on Victoria Island, but our clients are mainly like on a mainland and in the rural areas of Nigeria. I would say maybe still a lack of infrastructure. And we are talking and we are hearing so much talks about 5G coming to Lagos and Nigeria. But you move outside the Lagos, actually Victoria Island, and you will barely have 2G. So I think that there is a still way to go and to fix, to bring a standard, not only for people living on this island, but to bring a standard up for everyone else before we can start talking about being on a global level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Wonderful contribution. Just one more, please. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. My name is Adesoji Faraibe. I'm from Don Commission. And this is a very interesting question. But the first I would like to say, just like it's data infrastructure. And the one I'm talking about, like we heard, is soft data infrastructure, which is data. Because we talk about 7% of the contribution to GDP from the fintech, but what's the inclusion rate? Are people actually, do we have the accurate data? Because we can, for all we like here, we can begin to talk about this, but do we actually have this data? Are they accurate? Then the second one has to do with the adoption rate of the people themselves. Are we ready to actually go in all and all through? Because we just talk about the percentage of cash transaction in Nigeria, and we are talking about the level of inclusion, financial inclusion, but it's still very, very low. I mean, so this the level of adoption is still very low, and I think there's still more to do for advocacy towards adopting the financial services in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Just to respond to that very quickly, I like what you said about infrastructure as one of the challenges, and I like what you said about the middlemen. I thought that the presence of the middlemen makes the whole cycle interesting, but in terms of service delivery, I now understand that it could be a potential problem. You talked about fiber, data, and all of that. I'll respond to that very quickly. As part of the Lagos State Development Plan 2052, and as part of something that is currently ongoing, Lagos is investing together with private sector, corporations within that industry, the fiber optic network. I'm sure you see those cables across everywhere in Lagos. So what it means is that in the next, couple of months, to 1 year, 2 years, you will see the cost of data come down. You see the quality of data going up. We want to make sure that even data at 5G level is present in all our public institutions to start with. Accessibility will go up. More people and businesses will be able to tap into that resource. That is currently going. So, and I believe that that's going to go a long way in addressing that issue. But I'll ask Ms. Indrifrike to help me, attend to the issue that you've raised on, the middlemen, especially within the payment services realm.
Okay, so if you look at the history of payment and where we started from, there was actually need for the middlemen, right? But if I look at all the innovations and all of the potential within the space today, things are changing, right? If we look at opportunities within real-time payment, and there are players actually building infrastructure to enable this, it will change that narrative slightly. So there's that evolution happening that will address this failure points and the number of middlemen. If you even think about what has happened within offline transactions where you have agency businesses, a lot of them have been able to create solutions, right, that target the customers directly and create a slightly seamless experience considering the type of consumers, right, that they're targeting. So I would say that there's an evolution happening, and within the next few years, we would see all of that fall into place.
So thank you very much. Do you want to, make some contribution,
Yes,
Mrs. Bukola?
okay. So my contribution will be to pick on the back of the infrastructure you spoke about. I don't see how we'll be talking about infrastructure in Lagos and not talk about power. Power is a fundamental issue that needs to be resolved. It's unbelievable that at this point in time in this world, we are still at this level where we are not able to power most of our locations. Again, if you move outside of certain locations, it even gets worse. So I think that as part of the plan Lagos State must have is to resolve that issue. And when I look at the statistics, it shows that Lagos consumes close to 50% of the power generated in Nigeria, and Lagos only supplies about 20. So there are significant gaps there. So it would be nice to know what the plans also are, because that, when you look at manufacturing companies, look at businesses, a significant portion, close to 30% or even more of their operating expenses is on power, and that gets worse when you look at the diesel, impact of diesel cost and coal. So I think that is one area that we need to fix so that industries can actually develop significantly more than what we currently.
I agree with you, Mrs. Smith. And, if you look at a kind of federalism, from power generation to transmission to distribution, it's at the central. But Lagos has been used to finding its own solution. We're the first state in this country that actually invested in its own IPP years ago. So that's some progress. And I think much more recently, there have been some devolution of powers, just a little bit to the state to be able to do some of these things, even though it's not been amended in the constitution, but there's been some understanding somewhere. And last year, Lagos State actually delivered, its energy plan. So we can only wait to start seeing the dividend of some of these changes that we are seeing. But there is serious constraint from our kind of federalism and the enabling laws that we have in this country. But with the agility of Lagos, with the kind of agility that we're used to, we will go ahead to find our own solution for the prosperity of our people, and that's exactly what the government is doing. I'll move very quickly to Ms. Ngozi Ola Israel, the CFO, AXA Mansa. So much has been said. Establishing Lagos as a global financial hub will require partnerships between stakeholders. The LSDP highlights some initiatives in achieving this. What are the key partnerships in your perspective that will help drive investment and position Lagos as a global hub?
Thank you for that question, Dr. Rabiu. And if I just ride on the first comment that you made, that we want to see Lagos as a country within a country, right? So it's not surprising that we're saying that we want Lagos to be a global financial hub. So even if Nigeria as a whole is not necessarily the destination of choice, we want Lagos State to be that destination of choice. And so if I think about what it means to be a global financial hub, that means that the financial service players that you have are comfortable working, thriving within that hub. And of course, it also means that you are also able to layer in, I'll use the word layer, right? New entrants, people, new people even want to join, right, the new financial services as well. And for this to happen, certain partnerships need to be in place. And I would say that one key one that I thought about was CBN. So I know for many players, people who work in banks here, you probably need to sometimes travel to Abuja, to have certain meetings and things like that. So I think it would be good to have like a center, right, within Lagos where you can have those engagements, coupled, of course, with improved regulatory frameworks from the CBN as a whole to ensure that they are able to attract new entrants and also make life easier for the incumbents. Another one, and I will just speak from an insurance point of view, is, for example, we have the College of Insurance. We also have the Nigerian Insurance Association that has all of the insurance players. So all of these people are available, for example, to provide support in terms of risk prevention for the financial service companies, to also help to deepen insurance. Penetration rate in Nigeria is currently 0.3%, not 3%, 0.3%. And like Mrs. Smith said, I mean, if GDP per capita is not growing, right, so it's basically almost falling. So it's been at 0.3% since I joined the industry, right? But even in Lagos, that can be different, right? We can have some compulsory insurance. It could be for households, for example. And we all know what insurance does. It basically ensures that you don't suffer loss. The house gets burnt, you get a replacement, right? And that generally would even improve the livelihood of those who are living within the country. Another partnership could be also with professional bodies, so could be with the ICANN, with the ACCA, for example, and then also improvement or strengthening of the relationships even with the players themselves, so between Lagos State and the current players within the financial services industry, so banks, insurance companies, to provide additional support for skill enhancement. Because for us to be a global financial hub, right, it means that our citizens must also be employable. They must have the right level of skills, because we're not looking for the financial service industries to come and bring 90% of their staff from their countries, right? We want them to employ our own people here. That means that we need to work with them to improve the level of skills. Another partner could be LBS, for example, right, to support with postgraduate type trainings. So that in summary is how I see it.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to pick you up very quickly on the insurance industry.
Sure.
If you go to other climes, especially in the US, you see insurance companies owning banks.
Yes.
But in this part of the world,
yes.
maybe we believe in other things that helps us to manage, our risk, and all of that. But
prayers.
Prayers and
God forbid.
And God forbid.
That too.
So the question is, how do we improve the insurance culture? Because when we say financial services, people just believe that you're talking about banks.
Yes.
Banks is just one player, within that particular subsidy. Just very quickly, so that we'll move on.
Okay, so it's multi-dimensional, but certainly the key ones are even the knowledge, the understanding. I mean, it's quite unfortunate, but many people still don't understand what insurance means. From even property insurance to life insurance, which is the least popular. People don't understand what you mean by, oh, you should insure your life, and they're like, God forbid, what are you trying to say to me, right? So the knowledge is still very low, and certainly there's a lot that needs to be done from that point of view. The regulator is driving a lot of this, the Nigerian Insurance Association is driving, but certainly a lot still needs to be done. The other one is trust. Unfortunately, some companies, I'd like to say that in times past, were not very consistent in keeping their promises to settle claims.
That's your industry, right?
Yes. To settle claims, yes, I will admit. So to settle claims and to settle it on a timely basis. But I'd like to say that in the last few years, this has changed drastically. And the regulator themselves have taken it very important. So even in terms of disclosing claims unpaid, to having an opportunity for customers to report directly to NICOM to say, I made a claim and it hasn't been paid. And honestly, they would send letters to the insurance companies. They would invite you, perhaps even to Abuja, to attend a meeting to explain what the issues are. So that also is one of the issues that we are contesting with. And the third one that I would just mention also is the ease, right? Many of us no longer go into banking halls. I don't know about you, but the last time I went maybe was to collect a PTA. Aside from that, I don't go to the banking halls to do anything. Everything is on my phone. worst case on my laptop, right? So the simplicity of also being able to buy your insurance, process your claim, make your contributions for a life policy, for example, is something that also has more or less been left on the traditional means. But it's something that is also improving, I would say, thanks to COVID. So maybe one of the positives from COVID, right,
Yeah.
so that has helped to drive a lot more automation, digital, automations and things like that. So it's something that is also being worked on to ensure that people from the comfort of their homes can buy insurance and engage with their insurance companies.
Yeah, thank you very much for that insight. I'm going to come back to you later on what we can do as a subnational to help
Sure.
either improve that culture and all of that. But I'll go very quickly to Mr. Emmanuel Etade, Senior Vice President, FMDQ. So don't think you've been abandoned. I just have, some bias for ladies. Eh? So, having said all of this, multiple sectors in the economy, including the financial services, have demonstrated momentum. They currently hold significant opportunity for high-value investments in Lagos. So the question is, what are the factors as seen in the LSDP that can drive investments and help solidify Lagos to take center stage in financial services in the continent today?
Thank you very much, Dr. Rabiu, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wear two hats, actually. I'm SVP FMDQ, but also the Executive Secretary of the Financial Center for Sustainability, Lagos. As we all know, the entire world is moving towards sustainability. They're meeting today's need without hampering or hamstringing the ability to meet the needs of the future. We have a youth bulge in the country. 18 years is our median age. We must think about the future. So more than 60% of the population is made up of people that are within the ages of 18 and 35. And so that's very important. I said that to set the context in terms of what we should be doing as a state. And I think my answer will cut across all the contributions of the speakers that have made interventions earlier on. What do we need to do? It cuts across infrastructure. It cuts across providing the right environment, the enabling environment. It cuts across regulation. It cuts across the educational system and structure. Let's take a look at all the big and well-established financial centers in the world. Is it London? Is it New York? Is it Singapore? Is it Guernsey? Is it the Cayman Islands, where you went to go and hide some stuff you don't want everybody to see? All of them have proficiency in one or all of the parameters. So let me talk about regulation, for example.
Yeah.
So back in the 90s or thereabouts, there was this struggle between New York and London as to who is the largest financial center in the world. Guess what moved the chips in favor of London? Regulation. So the US had these tight regulations. For example, Regulation Q, that restricted investments and sort of put some ice on the kind of profits that bankers can make. Guess what they did? They moved to London, and that's how you got Eurobonds. Eurobonds was born out of the fact that London had lighter, what they call feather touch regulations. So it's more of moral suasion, not strong, strict regulation that restricts how market actors can take action to make profit. You see them as partners. When you're issuing a regulation, you always engage them. Whereas in the US, there are stronger regulations about profits, about how you can issue securities, about the savings, the interest you can charge on your accounts. The guys in the US just moved to London, and that's how Eurobond. And today, Eurobonds is a well-established means of raising capital across the world. Forget about the name Euro. It just means raising capital in another country in a different currency from the regulation in your own country.
Absolutely.
So regulation is the single most important factor that can make Lagos achieve that status. And somebody else had talked about how we can get more in touch with CBN, right? Because CBN regulates the banking sector in Nigeria. So that touch point between the CBN and Lagos is very critical. Now, we know what regulation has done to access to FX. I can't speak more about that because I respect my salary. But, dear Commissioner, I'm with you on the status of Lagos as a semi-country, a country within a country. Lagos needs to have a special status. You need to look at, because let's look at the numbers. Lagos is growing at 5.8% CAGR, compound average growth rate. The country is growing at 5.1%.
Absolutely.
The region is growing at 4.6%.
Absolutely.
Other peers within the emerging markets are growing at 3.4%. So Lagos is fast outpacing the continent.
Absolutely.
So we don't need to impede in English dull Lagos' moves. We need to enhance Lagos, because guess what? If Lagos becomes that attraction point, that, what did you call it, the destination, the preferred destination for capital, it will percolate to the other parts of the country.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something else. Aviation. Lagos must be that hub, like a hub and spoke, where, like the way the UAE have done it, flights must go through. And they've made the airline, Emirates, the preferred airline. So Lagos needs to have its own, if you like, airline, if you ask me.
Airline?
I don't mind. Yes. Check out what the Emirates guys are doing. Lagos needs to be that hub. People need to be able to plan their trips and fly through Lagos. And guess what? The best hotel brands must be here. So your Alfas and your Aladoras should not be the ones occupying your beaches, please. There's 180-kilometer coastline from Badagry to Ekpe. That's 21% of the coastline in Nigeria. Nigeria has 863 or 853 kilometers of coastline. All the best hotel brands should be on that coastline. When you go to Badagry, drive down a bit, look to your right. The coconut grove there, you didn't plant it. Nature gave it to us. It should be a holiday spot. Now, when you go to Casablanca, it's the same Atlantic Ocean that got to Casablanca. Guess what the guys did? It's a Muslim country, but on a Tuesday morning, you see guys in bikini. It's not the citizens. It's tourists that came to enjoy the place, and they prepared it. They're earning money from tourism. This should be a tourist attraction. Security-wise, you should improve it. There's so many things. I can talk for a whole day. So the answer is in the LSDP. It's a well-documented plan. I love it. 204 pages of hard work. And I think we should try to implement it to the core. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent contribution. But I'll still take you on very quickly before I move. You know, you've touched on regulation, and, you know, I like that lens or that perspective, you know, looking at it. So beside investment, there's an opportunity, like you said, to further strengthen the economy through regulatory reform. So from a practical or a practitioner point of view, what are the key specific, you know, regulatory reforms or policies to position Lagos and serve as enablers for developing the economic resilience of Lagos State? If you have any, you know, 1, 2, or 3 specific regulatory reforms. And like I've said, you know, we continue to be constrained, you know, with these regulations, because regulators are organizations that are established at the federal level most of the time, but we have been known to have challenged some of this regulation or to have asked for exceptions, you know, and those are some of the things that really define the true essence of Lagos, like we've done in the past. So if we get, you know, 1 or 2 insights from you, that would be great.
Excellent. So the first thing that comes to mind is tax breaks for investors. So you know what Georgia did? Georgia is a state in the US. It discovered that it could not compete with Hollywood. It brought out an economic policy, you know, that said that if you decided to shoot your film in Georgia, they'll give you certain tax breaks or rebates. And that attracted filmmakers to Georgia especially. And the state is thriving because it's now attracting some of those B-rated movies, sub-A movies are all moving to Georgia. And they're making a lot of revenue from giving tax returns and tax breaks. In Hawaii, in Quebec, there are also tax breaks if you invest in wash infrastructure. That's in Canada and parts of the US. So wash is water, sanitation, and hygiene. Access to water in Lagos is, I need not say it, clean water and sanitation. in Lagos needs attention. But you could, since the state says it doesn't have the revenue, you can actually incentivize investors, market actors, to invest in water infrastructure by creating some tax break. From the federal standpoint, there could also be some, arrangements to allow Lagos enjoy certain tax policies. So if you are in Lagos, you are a corporate institution, you get some rebates. So they're already trying it with the E07, Executive Order 07 on road infrastructure tax credits. And there's a new one on wash too that's E09. Some could be applied to Lagos specially because you know that there are tax havens in the world. And some of those tax havens are some of the best financial centers. Cayman Islands, there are many of them. So I believe tax policies, that's one of the key areas. Second is the FX issue somebody mentioned earlier. I can't say much on it. Yeah. But some arrangements have to be made so that there's some special thing you enjoy when you're in Lagos businessman exporting or importing essential products that will favor the market and favor the country in the long run. So those two areas are the first things I mentioned we should engage the central bank on. Take it or leave it. The bankers committee meet here every quarter, right? All the big banks are here. Yeah. They can form that advocacy unit supported by the Lagos State government to engage central bank. And you can come to agreements or to some accommodation on those two key issues, tax breaks and access to FX. Everybody feels the pinch when it comes to those two issues in this market. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. I think somebody mentioned, I think it's you, on the investment, opportunity that exists within our tourism subsector. That's something that will be interesting for us to pursue, and is already embedded in the tourism plan, development plan, which is embedded in the Lagos State Development Plan 2052, as well, to turn those very, very important assets, the coastal line, the waterways into tourism destination. One of those examples that, you can start seeing immediately is the National Arts Theatre. We're partnering with the, Bankers Committee to finance this and turn this into, a very beautiful, entertainment hall that has A to Z of all, entertainment, activities like we used to have it, years ago. So we'll continue to pursue that. It's a difficult conversation given a multicultural, multidimensional framework as a country. But you said the right thing. We'll continue to push with the regulators. Let's move very quickly. If we have time, I'm going to come back to you to talk more about sustainable finance. Lagos State is trying to issue sustainable bonds, in green bonds, in blue bonds, and how all these will have effect on triggering, the economy of Lagos. I'll move very quickly to Indy. The LSDP has done a fantastic job in the first instance by providing that baseline of Lagos today, focusing on current realities and challenges we see ahead. We have then to move to practical solutions that the plan has to offer in mitigating some of these challenges that have been established here, and as we know in recent times. The question is, how tangible is the risk of a sector bust? How can we prepare for this, and what mitigation plans are available to prepare for this? Seeing Lagos, breeding hub for fintech and the insurgence of the financial services and payment space today. How tangible is the risk of a sector bust? Indy. Okay,
thank you, Dr. Rabiu. So I see the drivers that make us think about a sector bust. VC investment has reduced. If we look at specific sectors, within the fintech space that speak to some of these challenges, we see reduced activity. But I want to go back to the fundamentals. And one of the key fundamentals is the fact that e-payment still remains a major growth opportunity. Right? So if we walk back on some of the opportunities I talked about, it's very obvious today that cash still remains a key part of how we transact, which feeds the opportunity for us to do a lot of things. If you look at certain regulations, for example, around open banking, it gives us the opportunity to actually start to even collaborate more as players within the space. And the ability to collaborate more, the ability for lead players to actually open up their infrastructure, their assets to others, gives opportunity to birth some of this, to convert some of these opportunities we're talking about. Now, what is happening within the space also is that there's some sort of adjustment. So you will see that there's some sort of refocusing now on the things that matter. Today, when I speak with a couple of fintechs and startups, you will see that everybody is now focused on that path to profitability.
Yeah.
So that dynamic is changing. I mean, I was having a conversation with one of the panelists, and we talked about the cyclical manner of the business environment. There will always be that rise, there will always be that dip. And as each plays out periodically, there are learnings, and you see adjustments. There will always be winners, there will always be losers. So I would say that as much as we see some of these drivers for a sector bust, the potential for everything else is a lot higher or greater. Now, how should Lagos go about this or mitigate? So listening to the other speakers talking about how the government can respond to the needs of businesses, I would say deliberate engagement. Deliberately engaging with some of these stakeholders and partners. If we look at some of these established financial hubs, they're very deliberate in how they engage the players within their space, and they pick out their needs, specific needs. If we look at New York, there were specific needs from the players around dealing with certain regulations. Some of us are familiar with Sarbanes-Oxley and how expensive it is to implement. People were specifying exactly what mattered to them, and for the government to take into consideration and build plans around that. So I would say it's the same advice for Lagos State government, that deliberate engagement, with fintechs. And if you look at a traditional fintech, what are the key costs? We talked about infrastructure, that's real. Another key cost is always people. Just finding skilled talent can be a problem. We talked about doing some things within the educational space to make sure that these things are available to people. I would say that's the approach Lagos State government should take.
Thank you very much. Excellent contribution. I'll move very quickly to Mrs. Bukola Smith. It's been established that, for us to be able to accomplish this plan vis-a-vis the role that the financial services subsector should play in making this plan happen, that knowledge gap between the industry and the educational institution has been identified at that crucial point to achievement of the LSDP. The question is, what primary actors do you see essential for implementation with regards to the financial services sector, drawing from what we teach our people in educational systems or maybe infrastructure, and what should change, from your perspective?
Thank you. So I think that some work is already being done in terms of improving the knowledge base of our people. So at the bankers committee level, all banks on a yearly basis have a time where we do go and lecture on financial inclusion across various universities in Nigeria. That's one. I also think that, like somebody had mentioned, we should have internship programs that Lagos State could take that and establish that. And I remember in one of the institutions I had worked for before, we actually had a plan with the Ministry of Education in Lagos State where we took interns on a yearly basis, about 20 interns from the University of LASU and one other tertiary institution. So I think that if we could have a proper plan around that, with the financial industry sector and the educational sector, and we have those exchange programs and internships, it will actually help significantly, not just for banks, but also all the other players in the market. I think that it has to be a deliberate plan around that, building the knowledge base of our people, right from university level. And I also think that we need to look again at the curriculum of the universities, make it a bit more practical. So there are some certifications, some grades, some degrees that require that you have internship along the line. But I think that beyond that, there needs to be a revamp of the curriculum to make it a lot more practical. When I look at the curriculum of what we have here versus what obtains abroad, ours is more of cramming theory and less of practical. And I believe that that needs to be put in place for us to see the change. You're talking about technology. Because I know somebody who has been in university, one of the key universities in Lagos. And
in Lagos or in Nigeria?
In Nigeria. In Nigeria. And barely works with doing IT, doing computer, and barely has access to those facilities. And I just think that when he graduates, what's going to happen? At the interview levels, we are seeing people that are half-baked. They've been on strike for 7 months. What kind of graduates are we going to churn out? So I think that there needs to be a whole revamp of our educational system to prepare our children, make them employment ready. Yeah. And that will be better service for our nation and also for Lagos State.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, apart from the fact that Lagos universities, all the universities in Lagos are not on strike, I'm sure you all know of the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. So because we recognize this talent problem, and the LSCTF focuses on 3 pillars: employment, but most importantly, employability. Employability, making sure that those talents are employment ready. They are the kind of talent that the workspace is ready to, to take, and they do some molding and some, dotting the I's, crossing the T's for them to make sure that they are employment ready. And the third thing they do is innovation, creating innovation hubs, technology, curating of ideas and all of that. So all this we recognize, and we see an opportunity for improvement in all of this. So thank you very much
just
for
even add to that, with
yes,
the issue around JAPA now,
yes,
there's a lot of work that all collectively have
yes,
to do. So both the private sector, the government, yes, we really need to ensure that the people we have,
yes,
are able to deliver on what we expect.
Absolutely.
If not, we are going to be in trouble. There will be a crisis soon.
Absolutely.
If we do not start to ensure that we are building another generation of skilled workers.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. As we wrap up the discussion today, discussing and engaging on the pathway to confirming Lagos as West Africa's leading trade and commercial hub, what is one key point you want the audience to take away from this conversation and run with, even as we begin the implementation of the Lagos State Development Plan? I start with you.
Yes, thank you very much. You spoke to how we could possibly infuse something around the sustainable bonds. So I just think this is a time to chip it in. Lagos needs to stand out as one of the first subnational to issue a sustainable bond or a green bond. Lagos qualifies for that for certain reasons. If Lagos were a country, it would be termed a small island nation. The first country to issue a blue bond is Seychelles, which is a small island nation. Lagos is exposed to sea level rise. We all know Niru. Take a trip down Remi-Olewode Street, go to the end, and then look at the shoreline there. 4 years ago, it was 2 football fields in. Today, the water is splashing on the road. Sea level rise is real in Lagos. It's the reason Eko Atlantic City was built. But we need to extend that great green wall all the way to Ekpe and then use it for tourist attraction. So the green bond will cover projects that will help us to achieve that status as an international trade center, if you like, attraction for trade. And the green bond will finance things like renewable energy, housing. It will help us to close out on slums. The rate of slum development in Lagos is alarming because of the rural-urban migration. If you want to really achieve that status as an international financial center, you have to reduce your rate of slum development and improve on infrastructure. So those are some of the key points I think we should focus on. The green bond will soon be out. The person who is driving it is right here with us.
And I can confirm to you that we are making huge progress in delivering the green bond this year. So you see, Lagos has been very, very successful in issuing conventional bonds in the last 15, 20 years. But we found out that there's a new set of investors that only appeals to sustainability, sustainable
Impact investment.
impact investment. So this year we're doing our first sukuk, which is an Islamic bond that appeals to a category of ethical investors. We're doing our first sustainable bond in green bond this year that speaks to our investment appetite on sustainable projects. And that's exactly what you're talking about. I think the Permanent Secretary Debt Management Office is here. We submitted our application to the SEC yesterday, so we hope that before the end of the year we'll be able to deliver this. So thank you very much for that. Indy.
Thank you again, Dr. Rabiu. So as a strategy professional, when I look at LSDPC, my key message is execution, execution, execution. So it's been a delight reading the document, but my feedback to the audience is think about the minimum value required. So if you look at each sector, there is minimum value required there's the minimum effort required to start to deliver value to that sector. So we talked about tourism. If you've ever been to Zanzibar and you land at the airport, there's just this road that takes you straight from the airport to the beach resorts. And when you're passing through and you look to the left and your right, I feel like I'm in a village in southern Nigeria, right? So all they did was provide the basic and acceptable infrastructure to drive tourism within that area. And the inflow of foreign visitors is amazing. If you look at their airport, it's a small airport. I think it's as small as the airport in Calabar. It's the most basic, duty-free place I've ever seen. But you will have everything you need, but minimal effort. And it's functional, and they are reaping benefits from it. So they dealt with very basic factors and started to deliver value to the environment. So that would be my message to the audience and to the government. Think along those lines. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Ms. Ngozi, your final thoughts.
Yes, so I will certainly talk about insurance.
Please.
So I think there's a lot more that we can certainly do as an industry with the government. We can certainly try to offer some things almost free to some inhabitants in Lagos to just ensure that they have the basic care. And of course, insurance is not just property and life, it's also health, right? Which is extremely essential. I know there's a new bill now that has been released, but we all know how it works. It takes a while before it's fully implemented, but there are things that we can even do to improve the lives of the inhabitants of Lagos State. And it's something that we certainly be interested in doing. And I think we certainly all need to play our part as well in ensuring that that works.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Bukola Smith, your final thought, but please help answer the question on the e-Naira. We haven't gotten the chance to talk about it. Has it been, how far, given its adoption a couple of months ago?
And I'm sure Eden would have liked to speak on that, but I was going so like we all know, e-Naira was an initiative of the central bank and the bankers committee. And it's really basically having a wallet where you can then have your funds in. Unfortunately, the adoption hasn't been as expected. For a number of reasons, there are not enough incentives, in my view, to make people want to put their proceeds in the wallets, in the e-Naira wallets, when they have other bank accounts. And I guess also, again, that maybe from the banking industry perspective also, there were challenges around who owns the proceeds, where do the proceeds sit? Do they sit at the regulators at CBN, or do they sit in the bank? So there are also some issues around e-Naira taking out liquidity from the markets. But I think that as we go into the African continental free trade arena, there will be an opportunity for the e-Naira to thrive. And I'm hoping that Lagos State, as we speak about being a financial hub, I'm hoping that Lagos State is gearing up and taking up that opportunity, because it's going to be a massive opportunity across the continent. And what the e-Naira will do if it is done properly, and Afrexim is actually championing a payment infrastructure, to be able to handle the settlement across the continent. Yes. And when that happens, what it means is that if you have your e-wallet, e-Naira, and you have funds in your e-Naira, you can actually go and buy items in Ghana. You can buy items in Cote d'Ivoire. And with your e-Naira in Naira, so you don't need to hold the currency of that country. You also do not need to hold dollars. So settlements will be done by the various central banks of the countries. So I think that will be a significant opportunity for the e-Naira to thrive, and we're looking forward to that being achieved. So on that note, in my own final points, is even to speak about that a bit more. So I think that there are opportunities for Lagos under that scheme. And when I look, he mentioned earlier, I was talking about Casablanca. And it's one story that I think that Lagos should look at, and look at how they've been able to achieve in Africa an international financial center. So like we all probably know, the central bank is already having those conversations about setting a financial center at Eco-Atlantic. And I believe that Lagos State should work hand in hand with Lagos to the central bank in one of the partnerships that I think would work. Looking at that, what Casablanca has done, they've identified a few companies whom they've decided to support end-to-end. Ease of doing business. It's very important that we resolve the ease of doing business in Lagos. Right from, we talked about issue of taxes, but issue of registration, company registration, even ownership of property, and all of that in Lagos. Lagos State needs to deal with that to make it easy for investors to even come into the economy. And that's one of the things that Casablanca has done. And I feel that if you do that, identify certain industries that we want to grow, and use end-to-end, solve all their issues, and use that as a template to then, expand to other areas of the economy. I believe that would help. Casablanca moved from being a hub that was only contributing in terms of industry very little, but now contributing about 44% of all the industries in Morocco. They are domiciled in Casablanca. I think Lagos State can replicate that. If you look at the S&P 500, at least 33 companies from Casablanca are on that platform. And I think that as they continue to work on that, they are attracting many more investors into their country. And I feel that if Lagos State creates an enabling environment, resolves the issues around ease of business, we will see more companies and more investors wanting to do business in Lagos. So on that note, I would say that for us, it's exciting times. I think that if Lagos gets it right, Nigeria is almost certain to get things even right. Yes. And I think that for us that dwell in Lagos, there will be huge opportunities across various spectrums, including the African continental free trade zone that is coming up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. I said the interesting thing is that the plan is not a Lagos State government development plan. It's a Lagos State development plan, meaning that it is for the government and the people to drive and hold each other accountable. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I like what you said about the African Free Continental Trade Agreement and how it's going to drive trade, how it's going to drive a lot of opportunity. And there's no better place in Nigeria to stand as that key international financial center for those opportunities that will come other than Lagos. So this is the time for our insurance industry, our banking industry, our payment industry, and all other categories within the financial service subsector to get ready for this opportunity. So on that note, I think it's been a very insightful and educative panel here. And we'll give a few moments to 1, 2, or 3 questions from the audience. From the back.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sirikat Falami. I'm a dressmaker and a fashion business coach. I'm very happy about the insurance coming, because insurance definitely will bring ease to many people. But the communication about everything that has been spoken here to the grassroots that you're actually targeting to make their life better is very weak. Very, very weak. And most of the people that are coming, listening to you, they have, maybe they are learned, they have the opportunity to understand you better, clearly, with little effort. So that needs to be strengthened. And you know, those that you are talking to, some of them already have the opportunity to japa. And those that are not, that are here without the japa, how do you communicate to them very well so that they can take advantage of all this? Thanks to Smedan, I pay 1,100 naira every month for health insurance, which is good, but more insurance policies, not only health. I recently just understood that Stanbic IBTC has something insurance on their app. People don't know, the information is not out there. The Lagos State Health Insurance as well. I called on my midwife recently because I have some medical challenges after my baby. I had pelvic diastasis. I need to be going for to Igbobi and all that. And I was telling her, do you know about the Lagos State Health? Yeah. And she said she doesn't know about it. So the people we communicate with, they need to be sensitized as well.
So the key is communication, right?
Yes, so that they can give the information to those that you're trying to make their lives better.
Thank you very much. Communication. Please, let's come in. Yes. Very quickly, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Amori, and I'm a startup attorney.
You're a what?
I'm a startup attorney.
You're a lawyer?
Yes, I'm a lawyer.
Lawyer?
Yes. Am I in the wrong place? A lot of the work, a lot of the conversations have been very exciting. And I've heard repeatedly ease of doing business.
Yeah.
Why that sounds very interesting, but it's important that some bit of context is brought in. The legal regime we have today centralizes business regulation at the center.
Yeah.
And I think that's a large issue why Lagos State, is a bit, will I say choked or handicapped? Why you have your hands tied? Luckily, there's a startup bill passed by the National Assembly. We're waiting for presidential assent, and that will help bring some certain form of ease. But it's also important that states contextualize its benefits by adopting this bill. Lagos State is doing a lot of that. Because you really can't be talking of a development plan, attracting businesses, without having a firm commitment from the center.
I agree.
You see, Lagos puts us in a bubble, a very dangerous bubble, where we think things operate fantastically. And then you go to a village somewhere, a state capital, and you really can't even access internet. So then you start asking yourself if you're still in Nigeria. Lagos is a small country, and we must begin to have conversations with the center as an independent unit of that center.
Yeah.
Now, let's also not beat around the bush. Lagos is imploding.
Yeah.
And I don't see a concerted relationship between Lagos State, Ogun, and Oyo State to reduce implosion. So, New York, New Jersey.
Sure.
Until Lagos creates that system, you see, you can't be talking of a financial capital or a financial center or a global leader in the African region and build a residential and economic capital. We need to demystify the residential nature of Lagos, especially the key hotspots, while working with, why doesn't Lagos State have a rail line, not a federal government rail line, between Abeokuta and VI or Abeokuta and Marina? So I can walk in Abeokuta, I can walk there and take the train, I can live there and take the train to Lagos. So these are the issues that will help bring home or drive home that development plan and give it results.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. Do we have a chance for one more question? No. Okay. So let me just respond, and I'm going to start with the last speaker. Thank you very much. Very, very germane point. So the first thing I'd like to tell you is that Lagos State is the only state today in the world that I know of that is investing in rail. Rail is the kind of investment that is done by sovereign. This year, we will deliver the red line.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you that's the truth. That's the truth. We'll deliver the red line. That's the one that will come all the way, so it's an intracity rail from Ilupeju to Mushin to Ebutemeta all the way to Marina, conveying people from different, pockets of places to the destination. That's the hub in Marina, and people can traverse and go. So Lagos is the only state in the world that I know of that is investing in rail. So we have done this. So in terms of engaging with some brother sister states, Lagos only has two neighbors, the Atlantic Ocean and Ogun State. Okay, so we can't have a commission with the Atlantic Ocean, but we have a joint development commission with Ogun State government on waste management, solid waste disposal, even on housing and all of that. You talked about New York, New Jersey, and exchange programs of some sort. So all these things, if you go through the development plan 2052, they are well embedded, and I can assure you that all these things are well taken care of. On insurance, maybe let me just help to answer it as well because of time. I think the feedback is just about communication. So, and this cuts across all the financial services subsector from banking in terms of the product. But I think insurance is an absolutely important subsector in the financial services area. And just like we've said, in so many other countries, you see insurance companies owning banks. They own the banks. But here we have banks owning insurance companies because people won't do life insurance. They will not insure their phones. They don't insure their houses, and all of that because of some cultural and, issues and the lack of heightened advocacy. So this is a feedback for everyone within the financial services subsector. And I want to take the moment to thank our panelists once again. Been an excellent, insightful. And I want to thank the audience for being a very good audience as well. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. They told me travel. Nice to meet you. Don't give my card.
See the beauty of this city. What started as a dream is now reality. Everywhere you look, possibilities. Refresh the mountain rest, Lagos City. We need great schools, good roads.